Rain poured softly on the quiet streets of the human colony. The night sky was dark, covered with heavy clouds, and the air smelled of wet metal and dust. Ethan Walker walked home with his little daughter, Lila, after a long day at the market. He held her small hand tightly as they crossed the narrow lanes between the glowing street lamps. The world had changed since humans started living beside alien colonies. People were still afraid of what they didn't understand. And Ethan, a simple mechanic, was no different. But that night was about to change everything. Lila suddenly stopped walking, her eyes wide, staring at the shadows near an old warehouse. "Dad, someone's there," she whispered. Ethan frowned and turned his flashlight toward the sound. At first, he saw nothing but broken crates and wet garbage. Then he heard a soft whimper, like a child trying not to cry. He stepped closer, and that's when he saw her. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, hiding behind the metal barrels. Her skin glowed faint blue under the rain, her hair silver and tangled. She looked weak, hungry, and scared. Her big eyes, bright like moonlight, watched them with a mix of fear and hope. She wasn't human, that much was clear. Her ears were slightly pointed. Her small hands had faint, glowing marks. Ethan froze, unsure what to do. He had seen aliens before, but never a child, alone like this. Lila took a small step forward. "Hi," she said softly. "Are you okay?" The alien girl didn't answer. She only hugged her knees tighter. Raindrops slid down her silver hair and sparkled under the light. Ethan pulled Lila back gently. "Stay behind me," he said. He looked around, expecting someone to appear, maybe her parents or patrol guards, but no one came. The alley was silent except for the rain. "She's cold, Dad," Lila said, her voice trembling. Ethan could see the girl shaking, her lips pale blue. She didn't look dangerous, just lost and terrified. Still, he hesitated. If someone saw him with an alien child, there could be trouble. People in the colony didn't trust alien refugees. Some even thought they were spies. He looked at Lila, then back at the girl. Something inside him told him to walk away, but something stronger made him stay. The alien girl finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Please, don't hurt me," she said, in broken human language. Lila gasped, her eyes filling with tears. Ethan felt his heart tighten. He took off his jacket and slowly placed it around the girl's shoulders. She flinched at first, then looked up at him, her glowing eyes full of confusion and fear. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." For a long moment, none of them spoke. Only the rain filled the silence, washing away the dirt and the fear around them. Lila stepped closer again and smiled shyly. "I'm Lila," she said. "You're so pretty." The alien girl tilted her head, as if trying to understand kindness. Then, for the first time, a small smile appeared on her lips. "My name, Era," she said quietly. Ethan sighed, looking at both girls. He couldn't leave her here, not in this cold, not in this world where people hated her kind. But taking her home would mean breaking the law. He stood still, lost in thought, while Lila gently held Era's hand. Her small human fingers wrapped around the alien girl's glowing skin. In that moment, something beautiful happened. Two children from different worlds understood each other without words. Then Lila turned to her father, her voice shaking but full of determination. "Dad," she said, "please adopt her." Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He stared at his daughter, then at Era, who looked up at him with silent hope. The rain grew heavier, as if the sky was waiting for his answer. He wanted to say no, to protect his daughter from danger. But deep inside, he knew, if he walked away tonight, he'd lose something human in himself. He knelt down and looked into Era's eyes. "You don't have anywhere to go, do you?" he asked. She shook her head slowly, tears mixing with the rain. Ethan exhaled deeply, then pulled both girls close to shield them from the storm. "All right," he whispered. "Let's go home." Lila smiled through her tears, hugging both of them. And in that cold, wet night, a new family was born, not by blood, but by choice. The world outside would never understand. But inside that small human heart, something greater than fear had begun: love. The house was small but warm, built at the edge of the human colony, surrounded by the humming lights of energy towers. Ethan closed the door quickly as the cold wind followed them inside. Era stood at the entrance, dripping water from her silver hair, her glowing blue skin faintly lighting up the dark room. Lila rushed to get a towel, while Ethan started a small fire in the old heater. For a moment, everything felt unreal. A human father, a human child, and a little alien girl sitting together in silence. 3 hearts beating from 2 worlds. Ethan handed Era a cup of warm milk. She sniffed it first, unsure, then sipped it slowly. Her hands trembled, but her eyes softened. Lila sat beside her, smiling as if she had found a lost sister. Ethan watched them quietly, his mind full of doubts. He didn't know what he had just done. If the authorities found out, he could lose his job, maybe even his daughter. But when he looked at Era's small frame wrapped in his oversized jacket, he couldn't regret it. Lila started asking gentle questions. "Where are your parents?" she asked softly. Era looked down, her eyes glowing brighter as if tears were hidden behind them. "They were taken," she whispered, "by humans in white suits." Ethan froze. He had heard rumors about military raids on alien refugee camps. People said aliens were taken for research, but no one ever saw them again. He clenched his fists, feeling guilt he couldn't explain. Era continued in her broken voice. "They said they would keep us safe, but they lied." Lila moved closer and hugged her gently. "It's okay, you're safe now," she whispered. Era's glowing tears finally fell on Lila's shoulder. Ethan turned away, pretending to fix the heater. He didn't want his daughter to see his eyes wet. He wasn't a hero, he told himself. He was just a man trying to do the right thing. But something about Era's story burned inside him like fire. She wasn't just an alien. She was a child who had lost everything. Later that night, Lila fell asleep beside Era on the couch. The two looked peaceful together, one with human warmth, the other with alien light. Ethan stood by the window, watching the storm fade outside. His mind battled between fear and faith. Tomorrow, people might ask questions. Neighbors might see the strange girl. And the patrol drones sometimes scanned for illegal non-human presence. He sighed deeply. "Maybe I've lost my mind," he muttered. But his heart already knew. It was too late to turn back. As dawn broke, soft golden light entered the house. Era stirred awake, her glowing skin dimming in daylight. She looked around curiously, touching human objects, a picture frame, a small plant, Lila's toys. Everything seemed new and fascinating to her. Ethan handed her a slice of bread with jam. She smiled shyly and said, "Thank you, Mr. Ethan." He chuckled softly. "Just Ethan." Her accent was strange, her tone innocent, and her gratitude real. Suddenly, a loud knock echoed at the door. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He motioned to Era to stay quiet and opened the door slightly. It was their neighbor, Mrs. Harrow, holding a basket. "Morning, Ethan," she said. "Heard noises last night. Everything all right?" Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, just the wind, nothing serious." She peered past him, suspicious as always, but saw nothing. "Be careful," she said. "They say alien thieves have been sneaking around." He nodded quickly, closing the door as soon as she left. Era was trembling again, hiding behind the couch. "It's okay," he said, kneeling beside her. "You're safe here, no one will hurt you." Her small hand reached for his. For a second, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years, trust. That evening, they shared dinner together. Era tried to learn human words while Lila laughed, teaching her names of things around the house. "Fork," Lila said, holding it up. "Fork," Era repeated, smiling. Both giggled until Ethan joined them, laughing for the first time in a long while. In that moment, their house didn't feel small anymore. It felt like a new world forming, quiet, fragile, but full of warmth. Ethan looked at both girls, one born on Earth, one born among stars. He didn't know what the future held, but he made a silent promise to himself. He would protect them, no matter what. Outside, the colony lights flickered under the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, people still feared the unknown. But inside that little home, the unknown had already become family. And for the first time since the wars began, Ethan felt hope again. Days passed, and life slowly began to change inside the Walker home. Lila and Era became inseparable. Every morning they played in the small backyard, laughing and drawing strange shapes on the dusty ground. Era used small glowing pebbles she found outside to make patterns that pulsed with soft blue light. Lila called them star stones, and together they built stories of two sisters who would one day visit the stars. Ethan tried to act normal, pretending everything was fine. But deep inside, he felt the growing weight of fear. Every knock on the door made his heart race. Every drone sound outside made him freeze. The colony was growing restless. News spread that alien survivors were seen near the industrial zone, and soldiers had begun scanning homes again. He knew it was only a matter of time before someone came asking questions. One afternoon, while fixing a power relay, Ethan overheard two workers talking. "They say a family in Sector 3 is hiding one of them blue kids," one said. "The patrols are doubling searches tonight," the other replied. "If they find her, it's over for them." Ethan's hands shook as he tightened the wires. He didn't dare look up. He finished quickly and hurried home. Inside, the girls were playing a small game. Era was humming a tune, a melody that sounded otherworldly, soft and haunting. Lila tried to copy it, but ended up laughing. When Ethan entered, Era looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. "You're scared," she said quietly, sensing his worry. Ethan smiled weakly. "Just tired," he said, but she tilted her head, not believing him. Aliens could sense emotion. He had forgotten that. That night, he didn't sleep. He kept checking the windows. Outside, distant lights from patrol drones blinked like cold stars. He could hear the mechanical hum echoing through the alleys. Lila and Era slept peacefully in the same bed, holding hands. Their small breaths were calm, innocent, and pure. Ethan sat by the door, guarding them, his old rifle resting beside him. He promised himself he would protect them, no matter what came. Morning brought no peace. At breakfast, Lila noticed the dark circles under her father's eyes. "Dad, you look like a zombie," she teased, and Era giggled softly. He smiled for her sake, though his mind was miles away. He had to plan. Maybe he could move Era to an abandoned warehouse outside the sector. Maybe she'd be safer there. But when he looked at her, so small, so fragile, he couldn't imagine leaving her alone again. Later that day, Mrs. Harrow appeared again, knocking sharply. Ethan's chest tightened. He opened the door halfway. "Yes?" Her sharp eyes scanned the hallway behind him. "Strange noises again," she said. "And someone saw lights in your window last night." Ethan forced a laugh. "My heater's been acting up." She frowned. "Be careful, Ethan. Patrols are everywhere. They'll search every home soon." Then she left, her voice echoing in the corridor like a warning bell. As soon as the door closed, Era whispered, "She knows." Ethan nodded grimly. "Maybe, but we'll be ready." He gathered both girls and led them to the small storage basement. It was dusty, full of old boxes and broken tools. "There's a vent here," he said quietly. "If anything happens, you hide inside until I call you." Lila held Era's hand tightly. "We'll stay together," she said bravely. Era nodded, her glowing eyes reflecting the flickering light. That evening, heavy boots echoed through the colony streets. Loudspeakers blared, "Security inspection in progress. All citizens remain indoors." Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. He pushed the girls into the basement and whispered, "Not a sound." Then he walked to the door, trying to look calm. Two soldiers approached, armor shining under the artificial lights. "Routine search," one said coldly, stepping inside without waiting. They scanned the rooms with handheld sensors, the hum filling the air. Ethan stood frozen, praying silently. The younger soldier paused near the couch, glancing at the floor. A faint drop of glowing blue liquid, Era's tear from earlier, had dried there. Ethan's stomach turned. The soldier bent closer, but the senior officer barked, "Leave it, we're moving to the next sector." Within seconds, they were gone, the door closing behind them. Ethan stood there for a long moment, trembling. Then he ran to the basement and opened the hatch. Lila jumped into his arms, sobbing. Era looked pale, her eyes dimmed. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. He hugged both tightly, his voice shaking. "No one's taking you away," he said. "Not now, not ever." Outside, the loudspeakers faded, and silence returned. But deep inside, Ethan knew the danger was far from over. He looked at the two girls and made his decision. Tomorrow, they would leave the colony. They would find a place where no one cared about skin or stars. Somewhere they could live as a real family. And as he watched them fall asleep together, Ethan whispered to himself, "This isn't just survival anymore. This is hope." Morning came with a pale light that barely reached through the dusty windows. Ethan stood near the table, staring at the maps spread before him. His hands trembled slightly as he traced a route beyond the colony borders. If they could reach the abandoned mining tunnels near the old ridge, they might be safe. Those tunnels were closed years ago. No scanners, no patrols, just silence. He knew it was dangerous, but it was the only way. Lila sat beside Era, helping her tie her hair with a small ribbon. They both giggled quietly, unaware of the storm brewing inside Ethan's mind. He watched them with a heavy heart, knowing that soon he might have to run, fight, or worse. But he had made his choice. He would protect them, whatever it cost. As the day passed, he began preparing. He packed water, food, and an old data key that could open security gates. Era watched him curiously, her glowing eyes filled with trust. "Are we leaving?" she asked softly. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, somewhere safe." Lila's smile faded. "Will we ever come back?" He looked away. "I don't know." Outside, the colony was tense. Posters of missing alien children appeared on screens with red warnings. "Report any illegal non-human presence." The signs flashed again and again. Ethan pulled his hood low, his heart pounding as he traded his old tools for fuel cells. Every face around him looked suspicious. He could feel eyes watching, whispers following him. He hurried back home before dark. That evening, he sat by the heater, deep in thought. He remembered the first day the aliens arrived. They came seeking peace, running from a war that destroyed their worlds. Humans had promised shelter, but fear turned compassion into cruelty. Ethan had seen soldiers drag families away. He had turned his eyes then, but not this time. This time, he had something worth fighting for. Lila brought him a cup of tea, smiling gently. Era sat close, watching the fire's reflection dance across the walls. "I'm not scared anymore," Era said suddenly. Ethan looked at her, surprised. "Why?" he asked. "Because you're here," she said simply. The words hit him deeper than any weapon could. He placed a hand on her shoulder and whispered, "Then I won't let anything happen to you." Night fell. They waited until the patrol drones passed, their blue lights fading into the distance. Ethan gathered both girls and whispered, "Stay close, no noise." They slipped out through the back gate, moving through narrow alleys. Rain began to fall again, cold and relentless. The streets were empty except for flickering neon lights and distant hums. Every sound made Ethan's heart race. Lila held Era's hand tightly, whispering, "We're almost there." But halfway through Sector 5, a voice echoed behind them. "Ethan." He froze. It was Mrs. Harrow, standing under a lamppost, her cloak soaked, eyes sharp. "You're making a mistake," she said. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Please, don't," he whispered. She sighed, her face softening for a moment. "They'll catch you. And her." Then her voice turned low. "I already reported the sighting." Ethan's stomach dropped. Anger and despair clashed inside him. "Why?" he shouted. "She's just a child." Mrs. Harrow's eyes wavered. "Because rules are rules, Ethan. They protect us." He stepped forward, his voice shaking. "No, they protect fear." Before she could reply, the sharp sound of engines filled the air. Patrol lights flashed in the distance, growing closer. Ethan grabbed both girls and ran into the lower tunnels. Mrs. Harrow's voice faded behind them. "I'm sorry." The tunnels were dark, filled with echoes of dripping water and rusted pipes. Ethan's breath came heavy, his flashlight flickering. They ran deeper until the noise above grew distant. Finally, they stopped to rest. Era sat against the wall, her skin glowing faintly blue in the darkness. Lila leaned on her shoulder, exhausted. Ethan knelt beside them, listening for any sound of pursuit. Nothing but silence and rain above. He exhaled slowly. "We're safe, for now." Era looked at him with tired eyes. "Humans fear us," she said quietly. Ethan nodded. "Yes, but not all humans." "Then why help me?" she asked. He smiled sadly. "Because someone has to start showing what humanity really means." Lila reached out and hugged them both. The warmth between them felt like light in the dark. Outside, far above the tunnels, soldiers searched empty streets. But deep below, in that forgotten place, something stronger than fear was being born. A bond that no law could break. A love that defied species. And a hope that whispered through the storm. That maybe, one day, humanity would remember its heart again. The tunnels stretched for miles beneath the old colony. They were dark, cold, and filled with the smell of rust and forgotten machines. Ethan led the way, his flashlight flickering weakly as they stepped over puddles and debris. Lila clung to Era's hand, her small voice whispering softly, "It's like another world down here." Era nodded, her glowing eyes scanning the walls. "This place, it feels alive," she murmured. For hours, they walked deeper, following faded maintenance signs until the path widened into a large chamber. Old mining vehicles stood covered in dust, their metal shells reflecting the faint blue glow from Era's skin. Ethan found a small generator and tried to start it. After a few clicks and sparks, dim lights flickered across the walls. Lila gasped, "Wow, it's beautiful." It wasn't beautiful in the usual way. It was haunting, mysterious, like a forgotten piece of history waiting to breathe again. They settled near a broken control console. Ethan unpacked the food, canned beans and bread, and handed it to the girls. He forced a smile, though his eyes kept drifting to the dark entrance behind them. He couldn't stop thinking about Mrs. Harrow's words, about the soldiers, about how close they'd come. But for now, they were safe, and that had to be enough. Era sat quietly, tracing her fingers over strange markings on the wall. They glowed faintly under her touch. "What is that?" Lila asked curiously. Era hesitated, her voice soft. "Old language, from my people." Ethan leaned closer. "You can read it?" "Not all," she said, "but it says refuge." Ethan frowned. "A refuge? Down here?" Era nodded slowly. "Maybe others came before." The idea sent a chill through him. He looked around the room again. Pipes, crates, control panels. Everything looked abandoned. But the air felt different, as if something still lingered. He decided to explore, leaving the flashlight with Lila. "Stay here," he said. "I'll check that side." As he moved through the narrow passage, he noticed faint lights on the floor, tiny blue footprints that weren't Era's. He followed them until he reached a sealed metal door half buried under rubble. It had alien symbols carved into it, matching the ones Era touched. He pressed his hand to it, and to his surprise, the surface responded, pulsing softly with light. He stepped back in shock. "Ethan!" Era's voice echoed faintly behind him. "Stay there," he called, but the door suddenly creaked open, releasing a gust of cold, stale air. Inside was a chamber filled with dim blue orbs floating like stars. At the center stood a large crystal structure pulsing faintly. Era stepped beside him, her eyes wide with wonder. "This is a memory vault," she whispered. "A place my people built to hide what we were." Ethan watched as she placed her palm on the crystal. Instantly, the air shimmered with light, and holograms appeared. Images of alien families, cities, and a sky filled with twin suns. Lila gasped, "It's beautiful." But then the images changed. Fire, explosions, humans in armor, and screams. Era pulled her hand back, trembling, tears shining in her eyes. "They destroyed us," she whispered. "I remember now." Ethan gently took her shoulders. Hey, it's okay." But Era shook her head. "No, they won't stop. They will find us." The lights in the crystal flickered faster, reacting to her fear. Ethan grabbed her hand, pulling her back. "We have to go now." They ran from the chamber, the glowing walls lighting up behind them as if the place itself had awakened. By the time they reached their makeshift camp, the tunnels were humming softly with power. Lila looked frightened. "Dad, what's happening?" Ethan grabbed his bag. "We triggered something. We can't stay here." As they moved toward the outer passage, Era stopped suddenly. Her eyes focused ahead. She could hear movement, footsteps echoing faintly. "Someone's here," she whispered. Ethan turned off the flashlight, holding both girls close. From the shadows, faint red scanner lights swept across the tunnel walls. Soldiers, searching, following the same trail. Ethan's heart pounded. He whispered to Era, "Can you shut those lights down? The ones from the crystal?" Era nodded, her small hands glowing faintly as she concentrated. Within seconds, the hum faded, and the tunnels turned dark again. They hid behind an old mining cart, holding their breath as boots echoed closer. The soldiers passed within meters of them, their lights slicing through the dust. Then, slowly, they moved away, their voices fading. Ethan exhaled shakily. "That was close," he whispered. Era looked at him, fear and strength shining together in her eyes. "They won't stop," she said. "They want the vault." Ethan nodded grimly. "Then we'll make sure they never find it." He led them deeper into the tunnels, where the ground sloped upward toward a hidden exit. Behind them, the vault pulsed faintly, its last message whispering through the air like a promise. "Hope remains, where love endures." And as they vanished into the shadows, Ethan realized that this was no longer just an escape. It was the beginning of something greater, a fight for truth, for innocence, for the very meaning of humanity. Ethan led the girls through the narrow tunnels, their footsteps echoing softly. Every shadow seemed alive, every drip of water a warning. The tunnels curved upward, the faint glow of the surface just visible at the exit. Lila squeezed Era's hand tightly, whispering, "We're almost out. Don't be scared." Era nodded, her small chest rising and falling rapidly. For the first time, Ethan felt a mix of hope and fear. If they reached the surface, they might finally be free. But the colony's patrols could be waiting anywhere. When they emerged, the night sky was clear, dotted with distant stars. The wind whipped against their faces, carrying the scent of wet earth. Ethan led them into the shadows of abandoned buildings, careful to avoid the main roads. The city lights of the colony flickered in the distance. Everything looked ordinary, peaceful, but he knew danger was close. Era paused, looking at the stars above. "They're watching," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan frowned. "Who's watching?" "They can sense me," Era said softly, her glowing hands trembling. "The ones who destroyed my people, they can feel me even here." Ethan swallowed hard, realizing just how far their enemies' reach went. They moved quickly through back alleys, until Ethan spotted an old transport vehicle. It was covered in dust, but still functional. "This should get us out of the city," he said, unlocking the doors. Lila helped Era inside first, then climbed in herself. Ethan jumped into the driver's seat, engine humming to life. The hum of the vehicle seemed loud in the quiet night. He kept glancing at Era, her glowing hands resting in her lap. She looked calm but aware, as if listening to something no human could hear. Suddenly, the ground trembled faintly. Era's eyes widened, glowing brighter than before. "What is it?" Lila asked nervously. Ethan glanced around, but the streets seemed empty. Era stood, her small voice echoing in the vehicle. "They're coming." Before Ethan could react, a massive shadow fell across the road ahead. A patrol drone, larger than any he had seen, hovered silently, its sensors scanning. Red lights swept across the streets, searching, detecting, threatening. Ethan's heart raced. "Stay down," he shouted, pressing the accelerator. The vehicle lurched forward, dust rising behind them. Era gripped Lila's hand tightly, her glowing eyes focusing on the drone. Then, something incredible happened. A soft hum emanated from her hands, growing louder. The red lights of the drone flickered and died. The metal body shivered, then collapsed as if paralyzed. Ethan stared in disbelief. What just happened?" Era looked at him, wide-eyed. "I didn't mean to, but I can protect us." Lila gasped. "She's like a hero from the stars." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding that Era's powers were awakening fully, and they had only just begun to see her true potential. They sped through narrow lanes, avoiding patrols, their path lit only by Era's faint glow. Every moment was tense, every sound a potential threat. Ethan knew they couldn't return home, not now. The colony would hunt them relentlessly. He glanced at Era, her face a mixture of fear, curiosity, and determination. He whispered, "We need to find a place no one will ever think to look." Era nodded. "I know where," she said softly, pointing toward the distant hills outside the colony. The terrain was rough, almost impossible for normal vehicles. But it was isolated, hidden, perfect for hiding someone who was hunted. Hours passed as they navigated the rocky paths. Era's glow guided them, faint blue light bouncing off the jagged rocks. Ethan kept glancing at her, realizing she was no ordinary child. She had survived horrors no human could imagine. She had powers that could save or destroy. And yet, she trusted them, trusted a human. Lila whispered, "Do you think we'll be safe there?" Ethan glanced at the glowing hills, then at both girls. "Yes," he said firmly, "we'll be safe. And together, we'll make sure no one harms you again." At the edge of the hills, they found a hidden cave, obscured by large boulders and overgrown vines. Inside, it was dry and surprisingly spacious, a perfect shelter for the night. Ethan lit a small fire, careful not to alert anyone. Lila and Era sat close, watching the flames flicker. Era reached out, touching the wall of the cave, and the faint blue glow shimmered. "Here, I feel safe," she whispered. Ethan smiled softly, hugging them both. He realized that no law, no patrol, no fear could take away what they had found. Family, trust, and hope. Outside, far above the hills, patrol drones searched the colony, red lights scanning, unable to detect the faint shelter hidden beneath the rocks. But inside the cave, Ethan knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Era's powers were awakening. Their enemies would come. But together, they would fight, survive, and protect what mattered most. And in the quiet of the cave, as the first stars appeared above, Ethan whispered softly, "No matter what happens, we stay together, always." The night was quiet in the hidden cave, the fire casting soft shadows on the rocky walls. Ethan sat beside the girls, exhausted but alert. Lila rested her head on Era's shoulder, her small hand holding the alien girl's glowing fingers. For the first time, all three felt a fragile sense of safety. But Ethan knew it couldn't last. The patrols would not give up, and their enemies would search every corner of the colony. Era closed her eyes, her small chest rising and falling steadily. Then a soft hum filled the cave, faint at first. Her glowing hands began to shimmer brighter, casting blue light across the walls. Ethan watched, awestruck, as the air seemed to bend slightly around her. "What's happening?" Lila whispered, gripping Ethan's arm. Era opened her eyes, fully glowing now, her hair shimmering like silver starlight. I can control it," she said softly. The cave pulsed with energy, faint vibrations flowing through the rocks. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the hill outside. Ethan grabbed his rifle, peering toward the entrance. Patrol drones had found the area, their red lights cutting through the darkness. But Era stood calmly, small yet powerful. She raised her hands, and the light from her skin stretched outward like a shield. The drone's sensors flickered and failed, their engines stuttering. Then one by one, they shut down, dropping silently to the ground. Ethan stared in disbelief. She stopped them. Lila gasped, "Era, you're amazing." Era shook her head, smiling faintly. "I only protect us." Ethan knew this was their chance. He guided the girls toward a narrow opening in the cave that led to the cliffs above. They climbed carefully, the wind whipping around them. Below, the patrol struggled with their disabled drones, unaware that the fugitives had already escaped. The stars above seemed to cheer them on, glowing brighter in the cold night sky. At the top of the cliff, they paused, looking at the world below. The colony lights twinkled like tiny, indifferent eyes. Ethan held both girls close. "We made it," he whispered. Lila hugged Era tightly. "We're safe now," she said, her voice trembling. Era looked up at the sky, then at Ethan. "We have a future," she said softly. Ethan nodded, realizing that for the first time in his life, he truly believed it. They moved to the nearby forest, the trees dense and welcoming. Era's glow softened, guiding their steps without revealing their position. Hours passed, and finally, they reached a small hidden valley, surrounded by hills and rocks. It was isolated, untouched, perfect for hiding. Ethan set up a small camp, and for the first time, he allowed himself to rest. The girls sat together, sharing stories and laughter. Era tried human words, laughing when she stumbled. Lila taught her songs, and Ethan watched, smiling softly. But even in this moment of peace, Ethan knew the fight wasn't over. There would be hunters, soldiers, and fear waiting for them in the world beyond. Yet he also knew something stronger had begun: humanity, courage, and love. They had survived because they believed in each other. Because a human father and his daughter had trusted a little alien girl. Because Era's heart and powers had awakened at the right moment. The first rays of dawn lit the valley. Ethan, Lila, and Era stood together, facing the rising sun. The forest around them shimmered with possibility. No one could take away what they had found: family, trust, hope, and freedom. Era's glow reflected in Ethan's eyes, soft but steady. He whispered to her, "You're safe, and we'll protect you, always." Lila squeezed both their hands. We're together forever. For the first time in years, Ethan felt hope, pure and unshakable. The stars above seemed to shine brighter, as if blessing the new family. Era's powers hummed gently, a promise of protection and strength. The patrols and the dangers of the colony were far behind, and ahead lay a world full of possibilities, waiting for a family born from courage, love, and the will to protect. In that hidden valley, under the light of the new dawn, a human father, his daughter, and a little alien girl began their new life together. A life where humanity and compassion triumphed. A life where fear could never take away the bond they shared. And as Era looked up at the sky, she whispered softly, "We are home." The stars above shone quietly, witnessing a new legend. A story of hope, courage, and humanity. A story that would be remembered wherever humans and aliens dared to dream.